The room went deadly silent as the hologram flickered to life. 12 pairs of eyes locked onto the blue projection. A terrifying scene unfolded. An alien warship tore through a defense fleet as if it were made of paper. Water-based weapons sliced effortlessly through metal hulls, leaving only drifting wreckage in their wake. "That happened 2 days ago at the Century Outpost," General Moore announced grimly. "No survivors." Captain Jack Reed stood apart by the window, staring out at the endless stars. Tall, with cropped brown hair and eyes hardened by decades of conflict, the 45-year-old was among Earth's most seasoned fleet commanders. "The Awans," he murmured. "They're coming here next," Moore confirmed. "Our scouts report their fleet has altered course. They'll be in our solar system in just 3 weeks." A cold dread settled over the room. Everyone knew the Awans, the blue-skinned aliens from a water world who'd spent a century conquering star systems. Their ships wielded weapons no one could match. "For those who haven't seen the reports," Moore said, tapping a control. The hologram zoomed in, showing an Awan vessel unleashing a torrent of water. Not ordinary water, but a deadly stream moving with impossible speed and force. It sliced through a battlecruiser's armor like tissue paper. "They manipulate water at the molecular level," Moore explained. "They can make it harder than steel or sharp enough to cut through anything, and their supply is limitless." "What about our plasma cannons?" a young officer asked. "Water boils under heat, right? Haven't we tried that?" Moore shook his head. "They have a shield that prevents the water from boiling away. 23 systems have faced them," Moore continued. 23 have fallen." Jack turned from the window, voice low but fierce. "So, we surrender? Is that the plan?" The silence grew heavier. No one wanted to say it. "The president is considering all options," Moore said carefully. "But yes, surrender is being discussed. The Awans allow planets to live, if they agree to pay heavy taxes and obey their rules." Jack's fist slammed on the table. "We didn't fight the Guitarian Empire or the Nexus Horde just to bow, down to some fish people." "Watch your language," Moore warned sharply. "This isn't a tavern brawl. We're talking about the survival of humanity." An older man, quiet until now, rose slowly from a corner. White-haired and deliberate, his eyes were sharp. "Perhaps not all options have been explored." The room turned toward him. "Admiral Marcus," Moore said respectfully, "the floor is yours." Marcus stepped forward. Retired for 10 years, his name still commanded respect. He had led Earth's forces in the war against the Arctarians 2 decades ago. "I've studied the Awans since their first appearance," Marcus began. "Everyone focuses on their weapons, but no one asks the right questions." Taking control, he changed the hologram to show a close-up of an Awan. Blue skin, large black eyes, webbed hands. "They evolved in oceans," Marcus said. "Their bodies can't handle high heat. Their technology uses water. It doesn't fight it." Jack's eyes narrowed. "What are you suggesting, Admiral?" "That we've been fighting them wrong," Marcus said. "Everyone tries to block or dodge their water attacks. But what if we went straight through them instead?" "That's suicide," an officer whispered. "Not if we had a ship that turned their greatest strength into their weakness," Marcus replied with a faint smile. He placed a small device on the table, projecting blueprints for a ship unlike any Earth had seen. "I call it the Sun Forge," Marcus said. "Built around heat and fire instead of conventional weapons. The Awans use water because it's what they know. We need to fight with what we know." Moore raised an eyebrow. "And what do we know?" "How to make things burn," Marcus said simply. "This version preserves your original story's intensity and themes while sharpening the dialogue and flow to hook the audience immediately. The word count is roughly matched, and it's fully clean and YouTube safe. Send over the next part when you're ready. How soon can we install this system?" 2 days, said Anna. Maybe less if we pull people from the weapons team. Do it, Jack ordered. Weapons won't matter if we can't move. The next evening, Jack stood on a platform overlooking the nearly complete Sun Forge. The ship looked nothing like Earth's usual sleek vessels. It was bulky, with thick armor plating and a slightly rounded front that people had started calling the heat shield. Through special windows, he could see the core glowing red at the ship's center. Workers were installing the final components of the engine system, based on Wilson's steam discovery. Impressive, isn't it? Admiral Marcus joined him at the railing. In my 40 years of service, I've never seen anything built this quickly. Will it be enough? Jack asked quietly. Marcus looked at him. You're worried. In 8 days, we're taking an untested ship with experimental technology against an enemy that's never been defeated. Yes, I'm worried. Marcus nodded. As you should be. Only a fool wouldn't be scared. But remember, the Aquans have never faced humans before. Suddenly, a loud alarm blared through the hangar. Red lights flashed as a voice came over the speakers. All personnel to battle stations. Repeat, all personnel to battle stations. Jack's communicator buzzed. He answered it to hear General Moore's tense voice. Reed, get up to command now. The Aquans just broke through our outer defenses. They're at Mars already. Jack's blood ran cold. Mars? That's impossible. They shouldn't be there for another week. Tell that to the 2 outposts they just destroyed, said Moore. We need the Sun Forge ready. Now. Jack looked at the ship. It was maybe 80% complete. The weapons were barely installed, and the engines hadn't been fully tested. We need more time, he said. There is no more time, Moore replied. Launch in 3 hours or there. Won't be an Earth to defend. The line went dead. Jack turned to Marcus, whose face had gone pale. 3 hours? Jack said. Can we do it? Marcus stared at the ship for a long moment, then straightened his back. We don't have a choice. 2.5 hours later, Jack stood on the bridge of the Sun Forge. Around him, a skeleton crew rushed to prepare for launch. Screens flickered to life, showing systems coming online. Lieutenant Anna worked frantically at the engineering station. Core temperature rising, she reported. 5,000 to 6,000, holding at 6,500. That's all I can give you safely, right? Now! At the weapons console, Tom ran diagnostics on systems installed only hours before. Heat channels are responding, but I can't guarantee accuracy. We're basically pointing a flamethrower and hoping for the best. Dr. Wilson monitored the steam conversion system. The capture tanks are ready. Any water that hits us will be routed to the engines. In theory, at least. Jack sat in the captain's chair, feeling its unfamiliar shape beneath him. The ship was incomplete, untested, and possibly dangerous to its own crew. But it was humanity's only hope. All. Station's final report, he ordered. Engineering ready, Captain, said Anna. Core stable but below optimal temperature. Weapons online but untested, reported Tom. Life support functioning, added another crew member. Navigation systems calibrated, said the pilot, a young man named Ryan, who had volunteered despite the risks. Jack took a deep breath. Outside, the hangar doors slowly opened, revealing the night sky. Somewhere up there, the Aquan fleet was approaching, their hydro weapons ready to tear through Earth's defenses like they had countless other worlds before. This ship was supposed to take 3 more weeks, Jack said to his crew. We built it in 10 days. Whatever happens next, know you've already done the impossible. He pressed the ship-wide communication button. All hands, prepare for launch. Secure all stations. The Sun Forge's engines hummed to life, creating a vibration that ran through the entire vessel. Navigation. Set course for Mars orbit. Maximum speed. Jack gripped the arms of his chair as the ship lifted off the ground. Let's show these Aquans what happens when they pick a fight with humans. The Sun Forge rose into the night sky, its red core glowing like an angry star. Behind it, the people of Earth watched and hoped. Ahead, the Aquan fleet waited with weapons that had conquered half the galaxy. The battle for humanity was about to begin. The Sunforge moved through space, its engines glowing red against the darkness. Inside the ship, the crew worked in intense silence. No one had slept in over 24 hours, and the fear of what waited ahead kept them alert despite their exhaustion. Captain Jack stood behind the pilot, watching as they approached Mars. The red planet looked peaceful from this distance, but the radar screen told a different story. 5 large dots moved in orbit around Mars, Aquan warships. Status report, Jack ordered. Core temperature holding at 7,000 degrees, reported Anna from the engineering station, her fingers moving quickly over the controls, making small adjustments. I think I can push it to 8,000 when we need it. Tom looked up from the weapons console. Heat channels are aligned, ready to direct core energy to the front shield on your command. What about the Aquan ships? Jack asked. 4 destroyer-class vessels and 1 larger ship, replied the sensor officer. The large one is staying back. The others are moving to intercept us. Jack nodded. This was it, humanity's first real encounter with the Aquans. No human had ever seen an Aquan ship up close and lived to tell about it. All hands battle stations, he said, his voice steady despite the fear in his stomach. Prepare for contact in 5 minutes. As the crew rushed to their positions, Admiral Marcus joined Jack on the bridge. The old man looked calm, but his hands gripped his cane tightly. Remember, Marcus said quietly, they'll expect us to run or try to dodge their attacks. They won't expect us to go straight at them, because it's suicide. Jack replied. Marcus smiled slightly. Only if we're wrong about the heat shield. The ship's communicator suddenly crackled to life. A strange, gurgling voice came through, speaking in halting English. Earth vessel, this is Commander Vrax of the Aquan Expansion Fleet. Surrender now and prepare to be boarded. Resistance will result in your destruction. Jack looked at Marcus, who nodded. They had agreed not to respond to any communication. Let the Aquans think they were facing a normal Earth ship. 30 seconds to contact, announced the pilot. The first Aquan destroyer was charging weapons. On the main screen, they could see the enemy ship clearly now. It was sleek and blue, with what looked like giant tanks of water visible along its sides. A circular weapon on its front began to glow. They're preparing to fire their hydro. Cannon, said Tom, his voice tight with anger. He had been waiting for this moment since his family died. All power to forward shield, ordered Jack. Anna, give me everything you can from the core. Core temperature rising to 8,000 degrees, Anna called out, her fingers flying over the controls, heat shield activating. The front of the Sunforge began to glow red, then orange, then almost white with heat. 5 seconds to impact, said the E. Pilot. Jack gripped the back of the pilot's chair. Hold course. Take us straight into their weapon fire. Some of the newer crew members looked at him with wide eyes, but no one questioned the order. They had all volunteered, knowing this might be a one-way mission. Impact in 3, 2, 1. The Aquan ship fired a massive stream of pressurized water shot toward the Sunforge, moving at incredible speed. On any other ship, that water would cut through the hull like a knife through paper. But as the water hit the glowing heat shield of the Sunforge, something amazing happened. In an instant, the water turned to steam with explosive force. A cloud of white vapor surrounded the front of the ship, temporarily blinding everyone. Did it work? Jack shouted over the rumbling of the ship. Anna checked her readings. Shield holding. Water is vaporizing on contact. Contact. The Aquan ship is confused, reported the sensor officer. They're adjusting their weapons. Through the clearing steam, the crew watched the Aquan destroyer reposition, preparing for another attack. They're going to try again, said Tom. But now, we know it works, Jack turned to him. Can we use this somehow? Turn their attack against them? Tom thought for a moment, eyes widening. The steam explosion, if we could direct it back at them, like a reflected punch. Jack looked to Anna. Can we channel the heat to create a directional steam burst when their water hits us? Anna's fingers already flew across her console. Maybe if I divert power from the rear shields to the front heat modulators. Do it, ordered Jack. Tom, be ready to use that steam burst as a weapon. The Aquan ship fired again, a powerful stream of water rushing toward them. Brace for impact, Jack called out. This time, when the water hit the heat shield, Anna was ready. She channeled the heat in a precise pattern, creating a controlled explosion of steam that shot back toward the Aquan ship. The enemy vessel hadn't expected it. The superheated steam struck its hull, cracking and warping the surface from the sudden temperature change. It worked, shouted Tom. Their hull is damaged. Cheers erupted on the bridge, but Jack knew the fight wasn't over. Press the advantage. Move us closer. The Sunforge surged forward, its heat shield glowing brighter. The damaged Aquan ship tried to retreat, but it was too late. The human vessel was upon it. The intense heat caused the water tanks on the enemy ship to boil and rupture. Their tanks are rupturing, reported the sensor officer, amazed. They're being destroyed by their own water. Jack watched as the Aquan destroyer began to break apart. No one had ever seen an Aquan ship destroyed before. It felt almost unreal. But alarms, suddenly, blared throughout the bridge. 3 more destroyers approaching, called the sensor officer. They're surrounding us. Jack studied the tactical display. The Sunforge had defeated 1 ship, but 3 more closed in, and the large command ship was advancing as well. Can we do the same thing again? He asked Anna. She shook her head, worry in her eyes. The shield is overheating. We need time to cool it down, or we risk melting our own ship. And our weapon systems are still mostly untested, Tom added grimly. We got lucky with that steam reflection, Jack said. But we need more than luck against 3 ships. They could retreat, but that would only delay the inevitable. The Aquans would still reach Earth. They could keep fighting, but with damaged systems, survival was uncertain. Then Dr. Wilson's voice crackled over the comm. Captain, I have an idea. The water we vaporized from that first ship, we captured, some of it in our engine tanks. How does that help us? Jack asked. If we superheat it and release it all at once, we could create a massive steam cloud, Wilson explained. It might blind their sensors long enough for us to escape or reposition. It's risky, Jack said, but we don't have a better option. Do it. The ship shuddered as superheated steam burst from vents all around the hull, creating a massive white cloud that engulfed the Sunforge and expanded outward toward the approaching Aquan ships. Full power to engines, Jack commanded. Get us out of here while they can't see us. The Sunforge shot forward, pushing through the cloud and away from the confused Aquan vessels. As they cleared the cloud, Jack saw Mars in the distance and made a quick decision. Set. Course for the far side of Mars. We'll use the planet for cover while we make repairs. The ship raced towards safety, and the crew finally allowed themselves to breathe. They had done what no one thought possible, faced the dreaded hydro weapons, and survived. More than that, they had destroyed an Aquan ship for the first time since. The Aquans began their conquest of the galaxy. Someone had fought back, and won. Jack sent a message to Earth. Tell them the Sunforge works. Tell them we can fight the Aquans. As the message was sent, Jack looked around at his exhausted but triumphant crew. This was just the beginning of the battle. But they had proven something important. The Aquans weren't invincible after all. News of the Sunforge's victory spread across the galaxy like wildfire. For decades, species had lived in fear of the Aquans and their unstoppable hydro weapons. Now, for the first time, someone had fought back and won. The Sunforge rested in a makeshift dock on Phobos, one of Mars's small moons. Engineers worked around the clock. Repairing battle damage and improving systems rushed during construction. Inside the ship, Captain Jack met with his senior officers in a small conference room. A holographic map displayed Earth forces and the Aquan fleet, which had pulled back to regroup after their defeat. Earth Command is building more heat shields for our regular ships, Jack explained. But it will take time. Until then, we're the only defense against the Aquans. The good news, Anna said, tired but excited, is we've made some improvements. She gestured to the map. The core can now reach 9,000 dieter consistently, and we've redesigned the heat channels based on what we learned in battle. Tom nodded. And I've been working on something new. He pressed a button, and the hologram changed to show a new weapon design. I call it a thermal lance, a focused beam of heat that can reach enemy ships from a distance. You mean we don't have to wait for them to shoot water at us? Jack asked. Exactly, Tom said. We can attack first now. Dr. Wilson entered carrying a small container filled with a strange blue liquid. And I've made another discovery, he said, placing it on the table. Jack looked at the liquid. Water? Not just any water, Wilson replied. It's their biological fluid. Aquans don't just use water as a weapon. Their bodies are full of specialized water cells. He pointed to microscopic images on a screen. These cells are extremely sensitive to temperature changes. When heated rapidly, they rupture. The implications were clear. You're saying their entire biology has a weakness to what we're doing. Wilson nodded. Their evolution in oceans made them masters of water manipulation, but they never developed resistance to extreme heat. They never needed to, until now. The ship's communicator beeped. Captain, the communications officer said over the speaker. We're receiving a transmission from an unknown ship approaching Phobos. Jack frowned. Awan, no, sir. It's identifying itself as a Sauran vessel. The officers exchanged surprised looks. The Saurans were a reptilian species known for their tactical skills. They had been one of the first to fall to the Aquans' years. Ego. Put it through, ordered Jack. A new hologram appeared, showing a tall, green-scaled being with yellow eyes. I am Captain Gregg of the Sauran Resistance, the alien said in a raspy voice. We've come to meet the humans who destroyed an Aquan ship. Jack stepped forward. I'm Captain Jack Reed of Earth's Defense Fleet. Gregg's lizard-like face showed what might have been a smile. News of your victory has reached every corner of the galaxy, Captain Reed. Many thought it was just a rumor. The Aquan ships struggled to maintain formation, their systems faltering under the intense heat wave. Jack seized the moment. Tom, target their engine cores with the thermal lances. Focus fire. Tom's fingers flew over the controls, and beams of concentrated heat lanced out, striking the giant tanks and engine compartments of the disoriented enemy ships. Explosions rocked several vessels, tearing through their water containment systems. Gregg's voice was grim but hopeful. Their biological systems are failing. They've never encountered heat like this before. The Abyssal Tide, flagship, and largest vessel, began to slow, its massive form wobbling in space. But High Admiral Zet wasn't done yet. The Aquan flagship charged a secondary weapon, a swirling vortex of supercooled water and energy. Jack didn't hesitate. Raise the heat shield to maximum. Brace for impact. The vortex slammed into the Sunforge's shield, creating a violent burst of steam and energy that rocked the ship. The shield shimmered dangerously, nearing its limit, but held firm. We're holding, Anna reported, beads of sweat on her brow. Core temperature stable, but just barely. Jack's eyes were locked on the tactical display. Gregg, can your fleet flank them while we keep their attention? Yes, Gregg nodded, determination burning in his reptilian eyes. It's our best chance. As the Aquan flagship faltered, the Saurian ships moved in from the sides, firing precise plasma bursts and targeting the enemy's exposed weak points. The battle shifted rapidly, with the combined human and Saurian forces, pressing their advantage. Jack allowed himself a brief moment of hope. The Aquan rain might finally be breaking, but the fight was far from over. The Abyssal Tide still loomed, its commander relentless. Jack clenched his jaw and prepared for whatever came next. This ends here, Zet, for Earth, and for all the worlds you've crushed. Two of the destroyers collided, unable to maneuver properly. "They're retreating," reported the sensor officer as the remaining Aquan ships began to pull away. Even the mighty abyssal tide was turning around, moving back from Mars toward deeper space. For the first time in known history, an Aquan fleet had retreated from battle. The bridge crew erupted in cheers. Jack allowed himself a small smile as he watched the enemy ships flee. It wasn't a complete victory. The Aquans would return, probably with new defenses against heat. But today, humanity had proven something important. The water dwellers had finally met their match. 2 weeks had passed since the Sunforge drove away the abyssal tide. Earth had used this time wisely. 5 more ships had been fitted with smaller versions of the heat technology, though none were as powerful as the original Sunforge. Captain Jack stood in the command center on Earth, looking at the large screen that showed the positions of all known Aquan vessels. Their numbers had grown alarmingly. "They're gathering their entire armada," said General Moore, his face grim. 5 hydro dreadnoughts, including the abyssal tide, plus at least 30 destroyers. "Have any other species joined our side?" Jack asked. Moore shook his head. "Captain, Greg Sorens are helping, but most are still too afraid of the Aquans. They're watching to see what happens here." Admiral Marcus, now using a hover chair due to his weakening health, moved forward. "They think we just got lucky, that our victory was a fluke. Then we'll have to prove them wrong," said Jack firmly. The door opened, and Anna, Tom, and Dr. Wilson entered. They had been working non-stop on improving the Sunforge for the coming battle. "We have something to show you, Captain," said Anna, her eyes bright with excitement despite her exhaustion. Dr. Wilson placed a small device on the table. It projected a diagram of what looked like a new weapon system. "We call it the thermal cascade," Wilson explained. "It combines everything we've learned about fighting the Aquans." Tom pointed to different parts of the diagram. "It uses the core heat to create a wave of energy that expands outward, like the pulse we used before, but much stronger. It affects both their ships and their biology." "Will it work against their entire fleet?" Jack asked. "In theory, yes," said Wilson. But there was a catch. "We need to get close to the center of their formation." He hesitated. "We can only fire it once. The energy required will likely damage the Sunforge itself." Jack looked at the diagram, then at his team. These people had accomplished the impossible already, building a ship that could fight the unbeatable Aquans. If they believed this plan could work, he trusted them. "How soon can it be installed?" he asked. "It's already done," Anna replied. "The Sunforge is ready whenever you are," Jack nodded. "Then it's time to end this." Space around Earth filled with ships. The 6 human vessels, led by the Sunforge, formed a defensive line. Behind them, Earth waited, its people watching the skies with fear and hope. On the bridge of the Sunforge, Jack addressed his crew. "Today we face the full might of the Aquan Armada. They've conquered half the galaxy with their hydro weapons. They think water is the most powerful force in the universe." He looked around at each person. "Let's show them they're wrong." The sensor officer suddenly called out, "Captain, multiple ships dropping out of light speed. The Aquan fleet is here." On the main screen, ship after ship appeared. The 5 massive hydro dreadnoughts dwarfed the destroyers around them. At the center was the abyssal tide, now showing dark scorch marks where the Sunforge had damaged it. In their last encounter, "They've positioned themselves in attack formation," reported Tom from the weapons station. "The dreadnoughts are at the points of a star pattern, with the abyssal tide at the center." Jack studied the formation. To reach the center, where they needed to be to activate the thermal cascade, they would have to push through the entire fleet. Communication came in from the abyssal tide. The comm officer called it up. High Admiral. Zed appeared on screen. The Aquan's blue face showed dark patches, signs of burns from their last battle. "Humans," Zet gurgled, "your defiance ends today. Your heat tricks worked once, but we have adapted. Surrender your planet now, and some of your people may live as our servants." Jack stepped forward. "We will never surrender, Admiral. Water is not the strongest force in the universe. The will to be free is stronger." Zet's large eyes narrowed. "Then we will drown your world, and your freedom with it." The transmission cut off. "All ships, battle positions," ordered Jack. "Earth defense vessels 2 and 3 take the left flank, 4 and 5 the right. Saurian vessels provide cover. Fire! The Sunforge will lead the charge directly at the center." As the ships moved into position, Anna spoke from the engineering station. "Core temperature at maximum capacity. Thermal cascade system ready on your command." "Remember," added Wilson, "we need to be at the center of their formation for maximum effect." The two fleets faced each other in the blackness of space. For a moment, everything was still. Then the Aquan ships began to move. "They're charging weapons," reported Tom. "All dreadnoughts are powering up their main hydrocans." Jack took a deep breath. "All ships, advance." The human fleet surged forward just as the Aquans fired. Massive streams of pressurized water shot toward them from multiple directions. The heat shields on the human ships activated, vaporizing the water attacks. Steam clouds bloomed across space like white flowers. The battle quickly became chaotic. The smaller human ships darted between the Aquan vessels, their heat weapons causing damage but not enough to stop the massive alien fleet. The Sunforge pushed forward, its powerful engines driving it toward the center where the abyssal tide waited. 2. Destroyers moved to block its path. "Thermal lances fire," Jack ordered. Tom targeted the destroyer's water tanks. The heat beam struck true, causing explosive bursts of steam that damaged the enemy ships. The Sunforge pushed through the gap, still heading for the center. "We're taking heavy fire," called the damage control officer. "Rear shields failing!" The ship shuddered as water attacks hit it from multiple directions. Some vaporized against the heat shields, but others found weak points, causing damage throughout the vessel. "Engineering to bridge." Anna's voice came over the comm, sounding stressed. "The core containment is starting to crack. We can't take much more of this." Jack looked at the tactical display. They were still too far from the center to activate the thermal cascade effectively. "We need to get closer," he shouted over the noise of damage alarms. Suddenly, Greg's Saurian ship appeared alongside them, taking hits meant for the Sunforge. Captain Reed's voice came through the comm. "We'll clear a path. My ship won't survive much longer anyway. Make it count!" Before Jack could respond, the Saurian vessel surged forward, ramming into an Aquan destroyer that blocked their path. Both ships spun away, severely damaged. "Full power to engines," Jack ordered. "Head straight for the abyssal tide." The Sunforge raced forward through the opening created by Greg's sacrifice. All around them, the battle raged. The human ships were fighting bravely, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. 2 of Earth's vessels had already gone dark. Finally, the Sunforge reached the heart of the Aquan formation. The massive bulk of the abyssal tide loomed before them. "We're in." "Position!" Tom shouted. "Thermal cascade ready," Anna reported. "But the core is critically unstable. Once we activate it, we'll have minutes at most before it breaches." Jack nodded grimly. They all knew this might be a one-way mission. Activate the cascade. Anna's fingers flew over the controls, initiating the sequence they had designed. The ship's core glowed brighter than ever before, pulsing with energy that flowed into the new system. "Thermal cascade charging," she reported. 80%, 90, ready." "Fire," ordered Jack. The Sunforge released the built-up energy in a massive wave that expanded outward in all directions. Unlike their previous heat pulse, this one was visible, a rippling distortion that spread through space like a stone dropped in a pond. When it hit the Aquan ships, the effect was immediate and devastating. Water tanks ruptured, releasing their contents, which instantly vaporized in the intense heat. The expanding steam created secondary explosions throughout the fleet. On the biological level, the Aquans themselves were affected even more severely. The sudden extreme temperature change caused their specialized water cells to burst, incapacitating entire crews simultaneously. The abyssal tide, closest to the pulse origin, suffered the worst damage. Its massive hull cracked in multiple places as its water weapon systems catastrophically failed. "It's working!" shouted Tom, watching the sensor readings. But the victory came at a price. The Sunforge's core was now dangerously unstable, the heat threatening to melt the ship from the inside out. "Core breach in 2 minutes," Anna called over the blaring alarms. "We need to evacuate. All hands to escape pods," Jack ordered. "Abandon ship. Repeat, abandon ship." As the crew rushed to the escape pods, Jack remained on the bridge, watching the Aquan fleet fall into disarray. Ship after ship went dark or began drifting helplessly. The mighty abyssal tide, pride of the Aquan Armada, was breaking apart. Anna appeared at his side. "Captain, we need to go now." Jack nodded and followed her to the last escape pod. As they pulled away from the Sunforge, they watched through the small window as the ship that had saved humanity glowed brighter and brighter. Then, in a final burst of light, the Sunforge's core breach